In my last anime challenge, which you should go watch if you haven't, we saw Yu Narukami take on Persona 4 Golden using personas only used in the anime. More specifically, I could only use personas who were used in their respective fights. For example, in Narukami's fight against Chie, I was only allowed to use Izanagi and Pyrojack, as those were the only personas used in that battle in the anime. As for teammates, I can only use whatever teammates that were used or made most of an impact in their respective battles. Lastly, I will be fighting with level caps to make the battles more interesting, and when I say more interesting, I mean it, as this was the most I've ever died in a single challenge. Just you wait and see. With all that out of the way, make sure you absolutely destroy that like button and subscribe to the channel. If this is your first time here, I make a lot of Persona related content, whether that be playthroughs, challenges, or even general reactions, and I've also been branching out to other Sega related games like Sonic. If that all sounds good to you, you're in the right place. We are now on the road to 20k subscribers, and I know we can make that happen. Alright, enough yapping. Let's do this. We're not here for any story nonsense. So for the first battle against the Priestess, I am allowed to use Orpheus, Jack Frost, Yukari's Io, and Junpei's Hermes. Is it Hermes or Hermes? Let me know in the comments. I don't really know. Now, I'm not gonna waste your time. Of course, this is the very first boss, and it's a cakewalk. Having Orpheus on my team makes this extremely free, since although the Priestess isn't technically weak to fire, it takes double damage from it, making Agi the most optimal move for the fight. I also like to use a little strategy called Operation PED, where I take Orpheus to the arcade every Wednesday and Saturday, and you can pay a measly fee to gain 3 points to your magic stat every time. During the fight, the plan was just Agi with myself and Junpei and heal with Yukari. They ended up dying towards the end, but they lived long enough to play their role sufficiently, allowing me to finish the Priestess off with a minute left to go. Boss 1 down. Have y'all ever had Celsius before? This is the... I'd have to flip the camera, but this is Snowball Frost. It's a winter flavor. Fire, I truly recommend it. Great energy drink. Anyways, moving on to the Emperor and Empress, I'm allowed to use Orpheus, Sarasvati, Jack Frost, Junpei's Hermes, and Akihiko's Polydeuces. This battle was a little trickier than it needed to be because I somehow broke my game to where I didn't have access to shifting, so whenever I triggered a weakness, I had to continue the old-fashioned way, the way it was before Persona 5. The Emperor was weak to electricity, so Akihiko was our main guy until they changed their affinities. After the switch, the Empress was weak to strike, and the Emperor was weak to ice, which meant I could take them down by myself with Orpheus's Bash and Sarasvati's Bufala to trigger an all-out attack. Junpei would just use Bash until he died, and Akihiko would Sonic Punch the Empress, doing enough damage to allow Orpheus to finish it off. That's 2 victories under my belt without a single death. Hoping to continue my hot streak, it's time to commence battle with the Hierophant. For this battle, I'm allowed to use Junpei's Hermes, Akihiko's Polydeuces, and Mitsuru's Penthesilea. Yes, you heard that right. In the anime, the second movie opened up with the Hierophant fight, and only those 3 were present in battle. The movie switched up the order of events and had Makoto sidelined while Yukari was in the shower. That means no Makoto. The Hierophant went down real fast there. Can I do the same without using my main character? Well, once the battle starts, I have to guard with Makoto, and I use Rakukaja on Mitsuru and Tarunda and Rakunda on the enemy. On the very second turn, I realize that I'm way out of my league here. The Hierophant uses Doomsday Doctrine, and both Junpei and Akihiko are paralyzed with fear. I only had 2 Patra Gems, and none of these 3 had any move to recover from it. Heck, my only healer was Akihiko, and his best healing move was Diorama, meaning I could only heal one person at a time. I rushed through my Tartarus grind, so I had no items at my disposal. I tried grinding the battle out, but I truly just didn't have the resources to even attempt a run. Stubbornly, I tried the battle again, but a Doomsday Doctrine put my whole party in fear, and they all got wiped out right away. Yeah, it's time to put my noggin to use. My first step was to look for any armor or accessories that resisted or nullified fear. Now, usually, I don't do this, but at the shop there was an accessory that gave me resist fear. I try not to use the shop in these challenges, but this was the only way I saw myself getting out of this one, seeing as my MC was a non-factor. And so I bought 3 of them and equipped them respectively. So back to the fight we go, and fear shouldn't be a problem anymore. Keyword, shouldn't. Another thing to note, Fear Gs are not allowed in any of these battles. Reason being, they weren't used in the movies, so they're banned. Anyways, I run my same strategy as before, buffing with Junpei and debuffing with the other two. It was actually going surprisingly well. I got the Hierophants at half health until the literal worst case scenario happened. Okay. We have made it halfway. Yes! No, just miss. Do me a favor, just miss. Please, 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 please. Oh. You see, I thought we were resisting this stuff. Using my one and only revival bead, I was able to bring Akihiko back, but another Doomsday Doctrine put two of us in fear again. We're all low health and Akihiko can only heal so much. Me and my chat also agreed that Makoto was allowed to heal himself, since if he dies, the battle ends regardless of the party's health. However, he was never allowed to support anybody or deal any damage to the enemy, or do anything to the enemy actually. Anyways, Akihiko goes down again, and at that point, the battle is basically over since there's nothing I can do to heal without him. I only had like no more than 4 healing items for the entire battle. Somehow, someway, even though all the signs pointed to no, I still felt like this battle was doable even with my current setup. And so I retried the battle once more, only to taste straight carpet because we died again after getting it to half health. I still had faith, but I decided to use this next run to confirm whether Doomsday Doctrine was used in a set amount of turns or whether it was random. If it was a set pattern, I could just guard whenever it was used, like I do during the second turn of the battle since it always uses it then. It seemed like it did attack in a pattern, the pattern being Doomsday Doctrine into Assault Dive, into Makoga, and then repeat, but it would sometimes stray from that pattern, so I decided it was too inconsistent to plan for, and went back to Tartarus to scavenge for more items. After a cool maybe like 30 minutes, I return as a new team. Not physically, everybody's still the same. But spiritually, I feel like we're coming in different because to be completely honest, I barely got any new items from Tartarus. Alright, listen, Tartarus is just so boring and I didn't want to do it on stream. Don't worry, after this boss I learned my lesson, but for this fight, I'm just gonna have to find a way. We're running on pure vibes and I run the exact same strategy, except this time, I try to predict when Doomsday Doctrine is coming. To my surprise, it was actually working, kinda. A mix of having a few more revive and healing items did make a huge difference, however, I still have one fatal flaw. There was a turn where I kinda figured a Doomsday Doctrine was coming, but my party was low on health and Mitsuru was already dead. The enemy's attack debuff was about to end as well, so I had to spend that turn healing and debuffing. The Doomsday Doctrine indeed came, and everyone got feared. This set me back so much, and I spent all my resources trying to climb out of my grave, only to be put in the same exact situation. Luckily, Junpei was the only one to get in fear, but then out of nowhere, this cheater got 4 crits in a row. I had sustained too much damage, and with all my resources basically depleted, this was very obviously not the run, despite it being my best one yet. The Hierophant only had around 25% of its health left, so despite everything in my head telling me it wasn't doable with this current setup, my heart refused to give up. I got a slight upgrade by buying armor from the shop, and before y'all say anything, this is the last time in the entire run that I used the armor shop. I still refuse to buy healing items and will never do so. The armor wasn't that much better than my current getup, but any small upgrade could make a difference. I hate sounding like a broken record, but my strategy did not change. I honestly don't see what I could have done different. I just needed better luck, and luck is what I got. I managed to get a crit with Junpei early on, and that did huge damage for me. Once again, I got it down to 25% of its health, and once again my entire party minus Mitsuru, who was dead, got hit with fear. Now surprisingly, I didn't take much damage at all. I was able to heal up and even get Mitsuru back up. But it seems like she really is my bad luck charm, because as soon as she got up, everything went to shit. Junpei and Akihiko got hit with fear and took heavy damage. I was able to use my final healing item on Akihiko and sacrifice Mitsuru as I had no more revives left, only to get hit with fear again. I was out of items and honestly, I didn't think it was possible. However, this is not where my story ends. Some way, somehow, Junpei through his fear was able to land a crit, and Akihiko through fear was able to heal himself and get over it on his next turn. Junpei died in the process, but I called a Doomsday Doctrine and used Tukukaja on Akihiko to raise his evasion. It was all up to him. I used the Sonic Punch and PUNCH! That does absolutely no damage. I'm cooked. Oh, I'm cooked. I'm good. I'm okay. Yep, GG's. That did absolutely nothing. That did absolutely, that did nothing. That did absolutely nothing, and he took way too much damage. I used up my SP to heal myself, and the only thing left I could do was get on my knees and beg the Hierophant to miss. It didn't. I had no faith, but Akihiko refused to let me give up. Through fear, he was able to replenish some HP. Through fear, he was able to dodge an assault dive with apt pupil and crit amp. Through fear, he was able to use Tarunda on the enemy. Through fear, he was able to use Sonic Punch. Once his fear ran out, Akihiko was the one who told me to guard because a Doomsday Doctrine was coming. He was right. Another assault dive came, and Akihiko, once again, was able to dodge and get another Tarunda off. He dodged the Doomsday Doctrine, and I felt like this battle was destined to be won. I had an item that buffed up my attack, so I used it and placed my faith on a crit. First turn with it, no crit and only 62 damage. Akihiko was only at 49 HP, so I had to heal my next turn, and immediately after, he got hit with fear and his attack reverted. An absolute waste of an item. His attacks were back to doing 40 damage, but he refuses to let me give up as he dodges another assault dive. We get another attack off, but we take a lot of damage since I don't have any more SP to waste on Tarundas. With only 47 health left, it was over. Akihiko's attacks were so weak that he probably would have needed 3 hits to end the battle. Knowing it was his last turn, he went out swinging. I died next turn though. I died next turn. Recovered from the status ailment. I don't have the SP to heal you. I don't have the SP. That's it. I lost. Oh my god! Oh! Oh my god! No! No, you cannot script this better! You cannot script this better! That is the luckiest thing I have ever gotten in any Persona game ever. There is absolutely no way. There is no way that got through. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. I refuse to believe that that happened. Genuinely, I still don't know how that battle ended up working out for me. Everything was stacked against us. Akihiko put on a show that will never be forgotten. I'm hanging his jersey in the rafters. I'm pouring honey on him. He could perform horribly for the rest of my life in any challenge that I do, and he'll still have my respect just for this one battle. Absolute cinema. Although he put on a legendary performance, we still need to progress through the Lover's Arcana, and so for this battle, I'm allowed to use Oberon, Mitsuru's Penthesilea, Akihiko's Polydeuces, and Yukari's Io. Swapping out Junpei for Yukari makes our team much better. Yeah, Junpei deals damage, but Yukari being able to heal the entire party with media serves a much better purpose. Also, just having Makoto back makes this team so much stronger. And so, I head into the Lovers fight expecting to clear this easily. I can only use Oberon, and he only has 2 moves, Zio and Media. Media's real nice since we can help Yukari recover health, and Zio, well... Oh my god! No, hell no! What's my next move? You can't make this shit up. I'm not even gonna drag this out. I got absolutely cooked. What's this weird feeling? Help me. I'm gonna catch y'all next stream. Yeah, back to Tartarus I'd go and enough shenanigans for the rest of the run. I'm going back to my dungeon climb into the boss routine. I also removed all the accessories and armor I bought for the last boss as I don't want those objects since they were purchased with dirty money. My main goal was to get skill cards to optimize my Oberon. I also wanted to get the muscle shirt from this chest on floor 54. You see, it also gives its wearer resist charm, something that is essential if I want to take down this heartless heart. However, instead of putting it on Makoto like what you'd expect, I'm putting it on Yukari for one simple reason. She has Patra, a move that can cure distress, confuse, rage, fear, and most importantly, charm. As long as she's okay, she can aid the party as needed. As for Oberon, he leveled up and learned some new moves, and I equipped him with Garula so I can actually do something other than using an attack that only deals 8 damage, as well as Rakunda just to give him another roll. Everyone else remained the same, and into the battle we go.
Our first turn consists of using Secunda with Yukari, Rotunda with Makoto, Bufala with Mitsuru, and Torunda with Akihiko. This lineup is really balanced as everyone can debuff the enemy in different ways. The Lovers' first turn consists of Holy Arrow, which charms Akihiko, and then a Heartbreaker which absolutely destroys him. Luckily, I came back from Tartarus much more prepared. I got him back up with an item and this entire team is able to deal real damage. The strategy in this battle is to contain the Lovers' ability to charm us. Yukari's resist charm will hopefully be enough for her to be unaffected, and she can use Patra to aid anybody who does end up charmed. I also scavenged for a few discharm items, so I felt well equipped. After the Lovers used their scheduled diorama, I used the Fear Sutra and got some real damage off until they used Seductive Breath that charmed everyone except for me. Having the discharm items was so clutch since Yukari was a victim too. Now everything was going well, up until this creature used Agidyne to one-shot Mitsuru. The entire party gets charmed the very next turn, and I literally can't do anything but watch as we punch each other and heal the enemy. Honestly, I couldn't recover from this. I tried using every item I had to at least get everyone's health back to full, but anytime I got close, the same cycle would happen again. It was an endless charm trap, and eventually, I went down. Now for me, there was no going back and changing my setup. If I was gonna beat this boss, it was with this current situation. I did not want to fight the Hierophant again, and I hate grinding Tartarus. It's boring. It had to be this lineup, and I had to tweak my game style. So in this battle, I did the exact same thing to start. I got mega damage off with a Fear Sutra after the Lovers healed itself. Cool. This is where things change. Instead of raw dog attacking with everyone and debuffing, I heavily prioritized guarding when I felt like it. I don't really know how to explain it, but during the fight, you can kind of feel when the Lovers is gonna use Sexy Dance, and that's the move I need to avoid the most. When I was unsure if it was coming, I would make sure to guard with, at the very least, Mitsuru. She's weak to Agidyne, and if an Agidyne hits, they'll follow up with a Marin Karin. Is it Marin Karin or Marin Karin? I don't know how to pronounce these things. Whatever. They followed up with a charm move every single time. Yukari getting hit with it sucks, so neutralizing that combo made this fight much smoother. The fight was actually going well, until the absolute worst case scenario happened. Makoto took a critical Holy Arrow head on, and it one-shot me. So essentially, I lost to luck. The strategy works. It was at like 25% health, and I died to luck. I was pretty pissed, but to be fair, it was kinda my fault. If the Lovers was Torunda'd, it wouldn't have one-shotted me, and so I repeat the battle using the exact same strategy, except this time I made sure its attack was always lowered, and even though it took a little longer, the Lovers finally went down, and I can finally move on from this cursed day. Stepping up to the plate are the Chariot and Justice Arcanas, and for this battle, I am allowed to use Shisa, Thoth, Akihiko's Polydeuces, Aegis's Palladian, and Shinjiro's Castor. Yeah, Shinji is here one boss early. In the movie, he comes in to save Ken and helps Makoto finish off the two shadows. Aegis's inclusion is a no-brainer since she arguably put in the most work, and Akihiko is the only other party member to actually get an attack off. As for the fight itself, dog, I literally died on the very first turn. We're just gonna call that a fluke and go right back in. So this time I guard and live, and our first actual turn sees me buffing up my defense, lowering their attack, buffing up Shinji's attack, and watching his attacks do very minimal damage. This boss is actually on the easier end since, yeah, it's strong, but it will announce who it's attacking, making it very easy to prepare for. I would make sure to guard with whoever it's targeting, use Rakukaja on them, and use Torunda on the enemy. If it starts loading grenades, I also know to guard with the entire party, as it's gonna use that same move that one-shot me earlier. One thing to note, in the movie, Aegis does use Orgy mode, so technically I could have used her Theurgy here, but in her case, I don't really like using her Theurgy because it doesn't give me control of her moves, and I just decided that I didn't want to use it, so if you're wondering, that's why. Aside from that, the rest of the battle was just a whole lot of rinse and repeat until I got their health low enough to separate them. Once they're separated, Chariot resists physical, so we use magic, and Justice resists magic, so we use physical, and that's the end of them. This one was one of the easier ones, so we'll see how we fare against the next boss. Speaking of the next boss, for the Hermit, we are allowed to use Makoto, Ken, Akihiko's Polydeuces, and Shinjiro's Castor. Notice how I said Makoto and Ken, and not Ken's nemesis or any persona that Makoto can use. That's because in the movie, while they are somewhat involved in the battle, they actually never summon any personas. meaning while yes, I can use them in the battle, they are not allowed to use their personas. You also may be wondering, Makoto can't have his persona slots cleared. So which persona's affinities and which stats will I be inheriting? And well, I decided that it has to be Orpheus. That's the persona we awaken to at the start, so that's the persona I'm going with. Except there is one huge problem. The Hermit uses a lot of electricity moves, which just so happens to be what Orpheus is weak to. Why do I do this to myself? I made sure to equip Orpheus with an Evade Elect, and into the battle we go. I start by guarding myself and using Makarakarn with Ken to set up a Reflect on Makoto to remove Orpheus's weakness, also meaning that I have to restart the battle already. Yeah, I forgot that I can't use Nemesis, and I remembered literally as soon as I pressed the move. Alright, now for our official first battle. I make sure the Hermit is Tarundud and that Makoto is guarding every single time, as the Hermit loves to spam some good old Mazio. The first hurdle in this battle is the Hermit's charging gimmick. Allowing him to charge leads him to using Mega Spark, a move that deals heavy electric to all foes. I can't handle all that damage. Plus, it staying charged up allows it to use its stronger attacks easily, like Swift Strike that gets a crit on my shocked Shinji, allowing it to wipe me out with a high volt current. I went back in and tried again, but this may be the most unlucky I've ever been. I can't even count the amount of missed attacks I had on one hand. It was genuinely unbelievable. The only way I can get massive damage off on this thing is when I charge up with Shinji and get a crit, but that's already super uncommon, and it also doesn't help when he's missing all the time. I was pretty pissed and got off the game for the night after I died. I got back on the next day, and even though I died again, I got it really low, like around 25%. I just needed it to Tarundud at all times, and I needed to make sure Makoto was always guarding. Every time I've lost, it's been because of a one more leading into a high volt current. I did go to the antique store and traded in some scavenged materials for some helpful trinkets. I got 2 strike bracers, an accessory that boosts strike damage by 25%. I put them on Akihiko and Shinji since they were the heavy damage dealers. I also got some Atrophying Sutras, which act as a Rakunda, giving Ken something more than just a melee attack. I had to regenerate 2 cards sitting, so I decided to put that on Makoto just to try to keep my health higher. Alright, back to the battle. Makoto remains on guard duty, Ken is on mega support duty, always using whatever healing items I have, and our new Rakunda item. Akihiko will be fighting whenever he isn't using Tarunda, and Shinji is on full assault. This time when the Hermit started charging up, instead of playing passive and preparing to take on damage, I made sure the Hermit was Rakunda'd and had Akihiko and Shinji deal heavy damage to ensure it didn't charge. Now, its strongest move was Mazio, which was extremely manageable. The cycle was repeated until its health was low enough to initiate accelerated charging. I guarded to resist its Terra Spark and tried my best to punch this thing out of its charged state, not knowing it gives a heads up before I use its Terra Spark again. I ran out of decent team healing items and just needed to survive the final stretch. Makoto remained a non-factor the entire battle as he watched his teammates attack, die, and support each other all the way through until Shinji took it down. It was finally over. It's now Fortune and Strength's turn to play, and so for this battle we are allowed to use Orpheus, Thor, Akihiko's Polydeuces, Aegis's Palladian, and Mitsuru's Penthesilea. Taraka was another persona who was used in this battle, but she's not present in Persona 3 Reload. So in my opinion, this boss is cake. In prior games, you can manipulate the wheel to give you what you want, but in this game, the wheel always starts with the same 2 spins. The first one is an attack buff, and the second one is 300 damage to everyone. You see, I haven't beat Persona 3 Reload in a while, and I like to refrain from looking at the bosses just to make the battles a little more interesting. I had 260 health when the 300 damage came, and well, yeah, that's instant death. Now that I'm prepared, I made sure to keep myself above 300 at all times. Aegis has Maraku Kaja by this point, so we never take any real damage. Thor's Zeodyne, Akihiko's Zeonga, and Mitsuru's Bufala did huge damage, and since Aegis couldn't really attack it due to a resisting physical, she just supported the entire time. The wheel spin also landed on a double magic damage for the party twice, so that just added fuel to the fire. When Fortune wasn't spinning a wheel, it used wind magic, which my Thor was weak to, but it never ended up being fatal in the slightest. Once strength went down, Fortune was another cakewalk. It was weak to electricity and strike, which 3/4 of our party excelled at, meaning we got a lot of damage from all-out attacks, and I finished it with a Zeodyne from Thor. Finally, a breather of a boss, especially considering what's coming up next. We're at the final full moon boss, but before we could step up to the hangman, Takaya and Jin stand in our way. For this battle, we are allowed to use Akihiko Caesar and Ken's Kala Nemi. That's it. Yukari, Aigis, and Mitsuru get a pass since they were fighting the Hangman while this battle was going on in the movie, but Junpei somehow got tied up again, and Koromaru is trying to wake up Makoto, who got boomed on to start the movie. Chidori is also present in this fight, but in the game, it'll just be a 2-on-2, which, if it weren't for the difficulty, this is actually pretty cool. Anyways, you can't enter full moon bosses with under 4 party members, so I had to drag Koromaru with me. Don't worry, once he dies, he stays dead. He doesn't have to stay alive for the battle to continue like Makoto does. This battle proves to be absolutely ridiculously not in my favor. The first hurdle is Jin's ability to confuse us. It makes whoever's confused unable to do anything for a few turns, so we take damage without being able to do anything back. That's bad. Our next hurdle is our weaknesses. Akihiko is weak to ice, which conveniently both Takaya and Jin have access to, and Ken is weak to dark, which conveniently both Takaya and Jin have access to. It'd be one thing if they use them at random, but no, these are actual humans and not shadows. They know my weakness and they abuse it. It also doesn't help that they have access to shifting, which allows Jin to let Takaya, who is stronger than him by a lot, do all the heavy damage. Jin also likes to buff Takaya and debuff us, so there's just so much going on with this battle. I'll spare you the details. I got rocked my first 2 attempts and had to find some way to counter their strengths. Xayah Block 1 in Tartarus was my first answer. In one fragment chest, you can find an item called the Eye of Ice, which grants high evasion ice attacks. I found one of these chests and kept save scumming until I got what I wanted. For Ken, I fused Neberos and leveled him up to get an unholy wooden doll, so I could trade that in for Night Demon sandals that have high evasion against dark. Now you may be wondering if this is fair since Neberos isn't in the movie at all, and I say I'm not using Neberos in-game or against any bosses, and I make the rules, so that's that. To get through confusion, Ken already had what he needed since he had his hero's cape from floor 151 in Tartarus, which nullifies confusion. As for Akihiko, there was no piece of armor that helped with confusion, so I used some resources to buy guard incenses and put them all on him and tried the battle again. So I know that on the very first turn, Jin uses Heat Riser on Takaya, and Takaya uses Maegaon. So to counter, I use Masuku Kaja with Akihiko and Makara Karn on Ken to prevent the one more. For the rest of the battle, it consisted of having Akihiko constantly Masuku Kaja and Matarunda. I wanted our evasion up at all times, and I wanted their attack down at all times. He would attack on his 3rd turn. As for Ken, he would be on healing duty and attacking when he can. My main target was Jin as he was the annoying one. His buffing and debuffing sucked, and he could also confuse Akihiko. The only way I would win is if I got lucky. I needed my evasions to trigger and I needed to deal damage. I had a few sutures I could use to lower Jin's stats, but since I was focusing on defense so much, I couldn't deal enough damage, so I died on my first 2 attempts. I went back to the antique shop and used up every resource I had to get guard and magic incenses on Akihiko. I needed him to deal more damage and take less. That was the only change I made before returning to the fight. I also used Masuku Kaja less and just placed faith in my accessories. I needed to deal damage. Luck was also on my side. Look at how Akihiko died and Ken was on the verge of it, but his counter from an accessory I gave him activated, allowing me to Sama Recarm him and bring me right back into the fight. I also got really lucky this run because Takaya for whatever reason would love to use Agaon on Koromaru, who completely blocks it. He's not even supposed to be here. I got a whole lot of dodges too, so I knew this was the run. Once Jin went down, Takaya was much easier. He would now mix in concentrates into magic attacks that would almost always be Agaons aimed at Ken. So I could easily just guard with him and attack with Akihiko. He also used Megidola, but with his attack debuffed, it barely did any damage at all. It took some time, but Takaya went down and I could finally rest. And by rest, I mean immediately have to fight the Hangman who was looming in the background. For this battle, I am allowed to use Melchizedek, Siegfried, Mitsuru's Penthesilea, Aegis's Palladian, and Yukari's Io. This battle was extremely easy. The team was very well balanced and we had every move we needed. The first 3 statues go down to each of the 3 types of physical moves, and with Aegis's Mataru Kaja and Maraku Kaja combined with Mitsuru's Rakunda, the Hangman kept taking heavy damage while not really being able to hit us hard at all. Now when he spawns in the one singular super beefed up statue, this is where I get scared because I always remember how it has a beefy Megidolon. However, Siegfried's physical moves do a lot of damage and we're able to take it down after an all-out attack. After that, it's just more of Siegfried need carrying as he gets a lot of crits, and the Hangman goes down to Anguish. We now skip all the way to January 31st, the fated day. I hate to do this, but the rest of these battles were extremely easy. I'll still do the whole thing, but we're gonna get through these next 2 battles fast. For the Jin battle, we're allowed to use Jack Frost, Junpei's Trismegistus, Akihiko Caesar, and Aegis's Athena. Jin cannot guard this lineup. Aegis being here makes everything easy as she buffs up our entire party's attack and defense. Akihiko lowers Jin's attack, and we all crush him with our heavy and severe damaging attacks. For the Takaya fight, we're allowed to use Yukari's Isis, Mitsuru's Artemisia, and Ken's Kalanemi. Now in the anime, this fight actually doesn't exist. Takaya just watches as the shadows swarm everyone, but then they all evolve their personas here and get through both him and Jin pretty easily. For the sake of the video, I fought Takaya with the 3 who were fighting the shadows, but just like Jin, he went down real easy, even without me using Makoto. Okay, finally, we're here for the final battle, and let me just start by saying I may have over-prepared for this one. The only person I'm allowed to use here is Makoto. In the movie, he solos Nyx. It's really badass, and I really wanted to replicate that. So instead of telling you what personas I was allowed to use, I'll just show you the personas used in the anime as I fight, and I'll show you what I did to secure my victory. Every persona I used was equipped with the boost variant for the moves that they are using, and I had an accessory that nulled all ailments. For the initial phase, we use Orpheus. Nyx doesn't fight back here, so this phase is free. For the Magician phase, we use Cert, who absorbs fire, and I equip him with Bufudyne since Nyx also negates fire here. On to the Priestess phase, and we use Mother Harlow, equipped with Zeodyne. She's neutral against ice, so I also put a Debilitate on her to weaken Nyx for this phase, as Nyx resists ice and abuses ice moves. The next phase was the Empress. For this one, we use Skathach with a Drain Wind and Vorpal Blade, as Nyx resists magic and abuses wind magic. For the Emperor, we use Odin with a Null Strike. I had a Spellmaster on him so I could use Thunder Rain as Nyx resists physical here, but Null Strike was the only move I could get on Odin, which meant that Nyx's slash attack still did major damage to me. This was easily the hardest phase, but having all the healing items I've scavenged for through all my Tartarus runs really helped here. Next up is the Hierophant, and we use Koryu here with Dear Rahan, High Counter, Null Physical, and Garudyne. Nyx also used Dark Skills here, and those hurt a lot, but we managed to get through it and on to the next phase in the Lovers. For this phase, we use Norn, and this phase is free since it relies on the Lovers gimmick of Charm into Heartbreaker, which doesn't affect me. The next phase is Chariot, and we use Siegfried equipped with Garudyne to deal damage, as this phase resists physical. It also uses physical, and Siegfried's affinities help us here. The next phase is Justice, and we use Addis with Drain Light and God's Hand, as this phase uses light moves and nulls magic. Between here and the final phase, the movie kinda just skips over them, so I just cycled between all the personas I had and used them as I saw fit until we finally reached the final phase, Death. In this phase, I had my ultra mega buffed out persona, the one I spent so much time preparing. Used in the movie for this phase, it's Thanatos. My ultimate Thanatos for this phase is equipped with Bufudyne and Ice Amp to give him a strong magic attack, Heat Riser and Debilitate to buff and debuff, Spellmaster to conserve SP, and Drain Electric, Drain Slash, and Null Strike to help with healing. I wish I could say this fight was hard, but I fear I may have over-prepared. Which, honestly, I'm not too mad at because this just goes to show how dominant Makoto was in the anime. Nyx's 2 strongest moves are Night Queen and Apocalypse. Night Queen's biggest threat is the fact that it gives random ailments on top of being heavy almighty damage. The problem for Nyx is, I'm immune to ailments due to my accessory. Now Apocalypse is an extremely strong move, but it's not a move that can ever kill you. You see, it may look like it does a bunch of damage, but that's because it does 99% of your health, meaning no matter how low you are, you'll always at the minimum be left with 1 HP. I had more than enough beads to replenish my health back to max, and no attack that Nyx dished out could do enough damage to back me into a corner. But even then, aside from the first time it uses the move, it always followed it up with a Mobius Rondo, an attack that I nullify, and Grim Transcendence into Asunder, which is a move I drain. It then uses Sweep, which is another move I drain, and then it concentrates, giving me 2 turns to get my health back to max, and even giving me help with that. Of course, Nyx goes down, and it was a blast researching and finding the solution to this battle solo by using online resources. In the past, I'd usually just find a YouTube video of someone who did something similar to me, like when I fought Margaret in vanilla P4, but I found this way to be much more enjoyable and rewarding. Let me know how you felt about the video in the comment section below, and let me know what other challenges you'd like to see from me. I still have to put out the Persona 5 variant of this challenge to complete the trifecta, so be on the lookout for that. As always, I'll see you when I see you.